Hey YouTube, it's Graxy. Welcome back to the channel. Hero Siege Season 8 begins on September 12th, so today we'll be making a tier list for leveling, progression, and endgame, with skills on every class in the game. So hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with all future Hero Siege related news, content, and build guides, and let's get into this one. The first tier list will be for leveling, and I like to break this down into two sections, 1 through 40 and 40 through 100. The reason we do this is there's some classes that are just dog for leveling from 1 to 40, and then there's some classes that absolutely will blast from 1 to 40. First up, we have Amazon, and with both Caustic Spearhead and Lightning Fury, I'm going to be putting these in the A tier. The reason for it, you do get a movement speed passive. You also have a pretty decent movement skill that scales with attack speed. And both of these are attack skills, which means you're going to be able to use that skill very quickly. Both of them can be leveled with a Strobe's Gift for single target and Spearnage at level 16, which will have good clear. You can also just run Caustic Spearhead or Lightning Fury whenever you hit level 24. Anchor Swing Pirate, I'm going to put into the B tier, and I know I'm going to get some flack for this. Pirate is a good leveler. The problem is you do not get access to Anchor Swing until level 24, which means you're going to have to use either the Parrots, which isn't really viable, or you'll have to use Freezing Chain Shot, which is an okay skill, but it can be a little bit rough for killing some of the bosses. Then once you do get Anchor Swing, there's no movement skills on this class. You can't teleport around or jump around, dash around. You have no base movement speed. It is a slow class, but because it has good damage, for that reason, I'll have to put it in the B tier. Lightning Bard, I'm a little undecided on. It's either going to be between A tier and B tier for me. I'm going to put B tier just because I don't feel like the speaker has that much single target damage. It has really good clear. But for some people, they may struggle with the single target of it, as well as you need to have good mana upkeep because you will need to spam this skill a lot. Now, once you hit level 30, you get access to the cooldown speaker, which will absolutely blast, but that's pretty much all the way through this 1 through 40 section. Flicker Bard is interesting because if you're playing in a group, I would put this up here because you can use this class to just blast through all the zones, but because most people are probably going to be playing solo, this class does not have good boss damage. It is tough to kill some of the bosses on. You'll have to do some skill swaps. For that reason, I'm going to be putting him down in the D tier. Slicing Through a Butcher is also going to go into the B tier. You could argue A tier on this one. He does have the ability to teleport with his knife. He throws the knife out. Once it gets a certain range, you can teleport to it. And this is a really nice way to traverse through the zones quickly while still killing monsters. His Furious Strike skill also got buffed to have decent boss damage. For Demon Slayer, we have Bullet Hell, which I'm going to place in the C tier, Slice of Shadows, which I'm going to put in the D tier, and Shredder Trap, which I'm also going to put in the D tier. Of the three specs, Bullet Hell is going to be the best to level with. However, you're constantly holding your right click, which means you're going to be taking a movement speed penalty. You don't really have a movement speed ability or passive or any of that, so it's just a relatively slow class. Shredder Trap has absolutely insane boss damage. However, running it at level 24 to kill mobs is a meme. And Slice of Shadows, you could put in the average category. You could argue between these two. I just think it's a little bit of a weird skill to use until you get the augment. And you're better off just playing Bullet Hell with Shredder Trap. Next, we have Demon Spawn, and I'm going to put both Blood Surge and Bone Storm in A tier. Blood Surge, once you hit it at level 24, is an absolute mob blaster. You'll get all the way through, and you can use Bone Storm as the second ability to be able to help kill bosses with. Or if you just want to play Bone Storm the whole time, it's just like a vortex that goes around your character. You can run into enemies, kill them. Also a very nice skill. Now, you don't have a movement skill in this class. There is a movement passive, but because of its clear, I'm going to keep him in the A tier. Next, we have Exo, and Exo is used in a lot of speedrunning. He is a very fast 1 through 40 speedrunner. I'm going to put him up in the very good category, as you kind of need to know how to play Exo and the whole meta around using him for speed leveling in order for him to be good. And Cold Exo, I'm not sure about. Next, we have Sand Guardians. Lol. And Age of Proliferation is also quite a good skill. This skill will auto target on enemies. You just hold your right click and this beam goes out and auto hits enemies. You also have a built-in teleport that gives you a big movement speed buff after you use it. Orbit Frost is going to be our first character in the Excel tier, mainly because once you hit level 16, you pretty much just blast all the way through the campaign. You also have a teleport at level 24. You have an all-res passive. You also have Shattering, which shattering enemies do not proc death effects. So overall, yeah, going to be a very, very solid leveling class from 1 to 40 in the next season. Frost Thunder, however, I'd probably put in the B tier until you get some extra projectiles and juice on Frost Thunder. It really doesn't start popping off. For Marauder, I'm going to put Bomba in the average tier. I really don't like his bouncing grenade skill. Like, it has okay AoE, but you have to aim it appropriately, and I'm terrible at aiming. As well as you don't directly get any movement speed. There is some movement ability that I can't stand as well. It's like, I think it's crazy grapple. You throw out this chain bomb that hits everything under the sun and basically nulls you trying to actually use the skill. Pretty much the same with Heavy Ball. It's going to have less clear than the bouncing grenade, just because you basically only have one line attack until a few levels, and you can start getting additional balls, and then it'll give you a bit more AoE. But until you hit the augment, it's just, the clear on it's just okay. And Chain Trap is basically unviable. Multi-Shot is basically just a worse bullet hell while you're leveling. I didn't like it. Trick Shot did get a little bit of a buff this season, but it really wasn't enough to make bossing that great. If you want to level a marksman, Frag Grenade is really the premium skill. This thing will absolutely blast. You get a ton of shrapnel. You get Vault to jump around quickly. Decent AoE. The shrapnel can shotgun on bosses for good boss damage. And at level 16, you also get access to some sentries that can also help you destroy bosses very quickly. Gunner Drone will also be an A tier class. You don't get access to it until level 30, but until then, you're going to be using Frag Grenade, which is also an A tier. Lifestack Necro cannot be played until after level 40. And Zoomancers, unfortunately, got hit this season. They do not feel good to level. There's a much better skill to level, which is going to be a Bone Necromancer. This we are also going to put up in the S tier. This is Teeth, by the way. This is not Bone Spear. Teeth absolutely blasts all the way through early leveling. All the projectiles with shotgun, you'll delete bosses with it. It has really good clear if you just stay back a little bit. And even though Poison Nova did get some buffs this season, I tried it a couple of times and I was able to get more damage on Meat Bomb that creates like these arcane poison projectiles than the actual Poison Nova projectiles. It makes no sense. I was really hoping that Poison Nova would get a bit more love this season. I would not recommend it. Next, we move on to Nomad. Sandgush is an absolute blaster. The changes to Sand Attunement really help with its early leveling. You also get Cloud of Sand, which will help you teleport around the map. I have not played Flying Scimitar, so I'm not sure. I think Lightning Paladin is good, but not amazing. He does have the Ball Lightning ability that gives him a big movement speed buff, and because of that, you could definitely argue that he's an A tier class. He does have good damage going through the campaign, and then of course once he hits 40, he's a blaster, but I'm going to keep him in B tier just because I think he's a little bit slow and his damage is a little bit wonky until you hit level 40. You're basically going to be playing a Lightning Paladin until level 24, and then you hit 24, you get Fist of Heavens, and you just start blasting. The projectiles can shotgun on bosses, making your bossing super easy, really good clear, quite an easy class to level to 40. Parrot's Pirate is practically dead, as you just don't even really get parrots until a certain level. And Cannonball lacks in damage and clear. Crematus on Plague Doctor actually got a pretty good buff this season, allowing the Poison Break to apply to enemies per cloud instead of per cast. So that's going to be a really nice buff for the class. I'm still going to put him in B tier just because he doesn't really get a good movement skill early on. He also has fairly mid boss damage and fairly mid clear. And bloodletting leveling can be done. It is just going to be much slower than Crematus. I'm going to put him in C tier. Pyromancer Scorching Aura is basically the Righteous Fire. He does have access to Blazing Trail, which can give you a movement speed buff and give you phasing, as well as you have Phoenix Flight, which can help you dash through monsters. But he is a bit limited on his actual skill being a circle around him, so I think he's going to be an above average. For Pickup Raid Redneck, it's decent, but it's not an insane blaster just yet. You kind of need some additional points to really beef up the skill. So for this stage, I'm going to put him in B tier. For Chainsaw Redneck, I'm not a big fan of it. I'm going to put him in D tier. Blade Barrier did get a little bit of a nerf this season. He's still a very good class to level. He's going to go up in the A tier. Blade Barrier just is basically a blade vortex that spins around you. You can run into enemies and kill them. Quick Slash is not a viable skill this early, nor is Shuriken Throw. For both Tornado and Totems on Shaman, I think these are sleeper skills. I could argue A or B tier for either one of these. You don't get a movement skill on Shaman. The Tornado variant, you're going to need a lot of mana in order to keep up the sustain on it. Totems don't need as much mana. They just kind of set them down. They do their own thing. And you just blast through the zones. Like I said, either way, I could argue A or B for either one of them. I'm just going to put one in each. I'm just going to put one in each category. For my Shield Lancer boys out there, Shield Wall is going to be the preferred way to level the Shield Lancer, and it's going to be an average C tier character. For Stormweaver, I'm going to put Chargeable in A tier. You do get a teleport on this skill, as well as it has decent clear and decent boss damage to be able to get through the early campaign. with Lightning Surge right behind it, offering relatively the same clear with less boss damage. Odin's Fury is a life stack Nova skill. It's going to be below average until you can get some of the additional AoE on it. It really doesn't do anything too special, and it has fairly low boss damage. Shockwave is unviable until the augment, and Whirlwind still feels like dog shit to level. Lastly, we have White Mage. Soul Spurn is actually a pretty good skill to level with, just because the amount of sustain you get from this, the life and mana that you get back, you just can't die, you never run out of mana. It's really, really nice. And then for Burst of Light specifically, I don't know, I haven't played it. This next tier list is going to be covering leveling from 40 to 100. This is when classes gain their first augment, and it's generally a pretty big power boost for most classes. However, they will still be ranked based on the same rule set from the 40 through 100 section. For Amazon, we have Lightning Fury in the A tier and Cossack Spearhead in the B tier. Both of these characters get the ability to teleport with Storm Dash now, which scales off of attack speed, and both of these are attack-based characters, allowing you to traverse through zones fairly quickly. Lightning Fury has really good clear, with Cossack Spearhead's clear being right below it. Lightning Bard's Progenies of the Great Cataclysm is an absolute blaster skill, but this does have a cooldown with the duration, making us not have full uptime with it. If you had full uptime, this would be an Excel 100%, but because you're going to have to be doing maybe some zone swapping in order to get the cooldown back, or just making sure that you blast your zones quick enough that you're constantly resetting that cooldown, adds a little bit of extra to it. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in the A tier. Flicker Strike still isn't viable. Butcher's Slicing Throw definitely opens up. You get way more coverage with the skill. You can still teleport with it. Bullet Hell now gets the ability to have good single target, but you don't really get anything extra from that. You don't get any additional speed. For Demon Slayer, I'm going to put all of the Demon Slayers in the B tier. You do get a blink ability, it does have a cooldown with it, and all of these characters have decent clear. I like Shadow Trap's clear the most. You're just not the fastest character. If you end up finding like a good pair of quick steps, then you could probably argue this is A tier just because of the clear with it. But overall, I think I'm going to put it in the B tier. At this stage for Demon Spawn, both Blood Surge and Bone Storm, you don't really get any extra value with any of their augments. Like, yeah, you can get some more damage with them, but you're not getting like any additional speed or movement or just like OP anything. I want to put these in B tier, but I think I have to put them in A. It's just a really good class to get through not only the zones, but killing the bosses and just progression. For EXO, other than the fire speedrunning, I don't really know anything else about EXO. Sand Guardians is a meme. I even tried using all of the new Sand Guardian items and it was bad. Age of Proliferation falls off a little bit. You still have that teleport movement, which is really nice. I just feel like the damage on it falls off a little bit, and the augment doesn't really give you any, like, you get damage, but it's not super noticeable. It's not like a super impactful augment. So for me, I think I'm actually going to put it in the B tier at this point. Jotun is an obvious S tier. That one absolutely blasts. I'm going to put Frost Thunder right below it. I think Frost Thunder has the potential to be really good as well. The problem is you just don't get all the projectiles until you level up. So until you hit the level 70 augment and get some additional projectiles from the sub skill tree, it doesn't really pop off as hard as Orb of Frost does. But you still have that teleport, which just makes it a really good skill for zoning. For Marauder, I don't really find the Bombardment augment to be anything special. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. However, Heavy Ball really picks up here. You could argue like a solid A tier for this character. It just really depends on if you find some additional movement speed or not. If you don't, you're definitely like a slow, sturdy character. But if you do find some movement speed, holy, you blast with this. I think for the sake of the tier list, I have to put him in B tier just because I don't see a whole lot of people at level 40 guaranteeing they have a bunch of movement speed, like quick steps or something. So I'm gonna put him in B tier, but if you find some speed on him, this guy blasts with leveling. Chain Trap moves from being unviable to it actually being viable now. It actually has decent AoE on it and good damage. Multi-shot, even with the augment, unless you have a really big weapon, this one's still kind of meh. If you happen to find a really big weapon or make a really big weapon, then you could probably move this up a few tiers just because you're now able to do tons of damage. But until that, it's definitely average. Frag Grenade does start falling off even with the augment, so I'm going to put him in the B tier. And Gunner Drone is a very solid leveler from 40 to 100. Just be sure you use the Cyclops augment, which is the top left augment, that turns them into laser beams. Lifestack Necro I still think is an A tier for leveling. You just need to make sure that you stop and go to the abandoned mine, farm out some mining material so you can make a bunch of Wildern Jewels to have enough life to make this character an A tier character. If you don't do that, this character is not viable. You have to stop and get life on the character. It is a life stacker. Zoomancer, unfortunately, had the synergy between Summon Mastery and Vengeful Spirits removed. It was severed, so your Vengeful Spirits will no longer take advantage from the Summon Mastery. This hurts the build quite a bit. For that reason, I'm going to be putting it in below average. Poison Nova is still a meme at this point. And Boner Necro, I haven't had a chance to test it after level 40. I've had reports from some people in the open beta did go and play Teeth and Bone Spear. Apparently it's doing very well. So it's definitely something that if you're playing Necro, you're playing an Arcane Necro, you might want to give that a shot at level 40 before you swap into Lifestack. But I would imagine that leveling this character to 100 with like Teeth is probably pretty easy. Sandgush continues to be a blaster. You also get the Cloud of Sand augment, which turns you into a cloud and lets you zoom around the zone really fast. It allows you to zone very quickly on this character. Good AoE. I can't believe I'm talking good about a Nomad right now. And Flying Scimitar, I haven't played. Lightning Paladin really starts to pop off with his augment. I'm going to put him in the A tier. He does have that ball lightning movement. Use it. It does help. I hate it. I understand I'm making the class worse myself. And Fist of the Heavens, I would put it in the S tier, but it got nerfed today. So based on the footage that I've seen and what I've played on the class, I would probably put Paladin here. Unfortunately, his augment now has a proc chance. So whenever it's spinning around, it's not guaranteed every time that it hits a monster that you're going to get extra projectiles. It's on a proc chance. So it definitely does not feel good. Edgar Swing's augment gives it a ton of additional projectiles. It really helps a lot. The class is still just slow. So if you get a bunch of movement speed on it, this goes up. Like it goes way up. Right, you could probably put this in S tier if you have a bunch of movement with it, but until then, it feels like a B tier just because you're kind of a slowy boy. We'll average it out, we'll put it in A tier. Parrots also get decent at this point. I'm gonna put this in the B tier. And Cannonball will only pop off if you have a really good weapon. And even when you do, it's not amazing. I'm gonna put it in the C tier. Plague Doctor's Crematus also feels really good at this level. And Randy actually got a buff to where you're not going to fall off Randy in one hit anymore. It takes 4 hits for you to get knocked off of Randy now, which is going to make this class much faster and able to juice much quicker. Surgical Bloodletting changes a lot at this stage, but I still find it to be a fairly average feeling skill until you can really get some stuff on it to make it pop off. Pyromancer Scorching Aura, still kind of the same deal. You're just limited by the circle that's around you. You just run into stuff and it dies. I find that to be average. Pickup rate is definitely a blaster. I feel that with the duration being nerfed on it, it does kind of fall off in the early Nightmare. It doesn't have the same oomph that it had back in like season 6. So I'm going to put this in B tier. And I haven't tried Chainsaw. Samurai Blade Barrier, still an absolute blaster. Quick Slash isn't really viable at this point unless you just have a crazy weapon. Then maybe you can make it work, but just play Blade Barrier. And kind of the same thing with Shuriken Throw. If you have a really good weapon, you can actually make Shuriken Throw kind of good. I have some interesting ideas with Shuriken Throw later on. But without the extra juice, he's kind of just average even with a really good weapon. And Shaman Tornado is actually a solid leveling class. Totem Shaman, unfortunately for me, felt like complete trash at Nightmare. I did not enjoy it in Nightmare. I've tried this a couple of times and it really it didn't get the juice until like level 65 or 70. Then it started to feel good and I was able to push through all of Nightmare. But the second that I hit Hell, it was the same situation until basically level 100. So for me, I have to put totems in average tier. For Shield Lancer, I'd probably still keep it in that C tier. You might be able to argue B tier because of the movement stuff on it. Between B and C for sure. This is where Stormweaver really starts to pick up. For Charge Bolt and Lightning Surge, we're going to put it in the Excel. You're going to use Charge Bolt for bossing, Lightning Surge for clearing zones out. You have the teleport. There's a lot of passives to the class. Overall, it feels really good. You could argue dropping this down into A tier just because the boss damage isn't amazing. Odin's Fury does start to open up here, but I still have to put it in the D tier just because you really need all the AoE. There's a lot of life stacking stuff going on with it. And even when you do all that, it does not have the best boss damage. And the same could be said for Whirlwind. The augments don't really provide it that much juice, and you're going to need really good weapons in order for it to do damage. This is where Shockwave Viking becomes viable, and it really depends on your weapon where you would place this in tiers. If you have a really strong two-handed weapon and you're wearing 2 of them, this is an obvious S tier. If you don't have good weapons, or maybe you only have 1 good weapon, you could drop it down a tier. If you don't have good weapons at all, you could drop it down a tier. It really is going to matter what weapon that you're using. I think we're going to average it out and just put it in the A tier for now. And for both Soul Spurn and Burst of Light, I haven't played White Mage, so I don't know for sure. Next, we'll talk about my Hell 1 through Hell 5 progression tier list. This is going to be a little bit different than I've done in the past. I have all the builds already in their tier here. I'm just going to go through each of the tier and kind of talk about why I place certain things in a particular tier. So first off, I don't think there's anything in the game currently that I would consider to be S tier that needs no gear. We're talking like Bard's Mosh Pit that's doing stupid amounts of damage. We're talking Lifestack Necros that need white gear with Wildren Jewels and they can go kill all of Hell 5, right? It's like either bug damage or things that need literally no gear. For the most part, I think that's been abolished. Right below that, we have the A tier. These are really good characters, but they're going to need a couple pieces of gear. So you can think Oberfrost needs maybe a Glacier Talon, get your relics figured out, get 100% pin. You're pushing pretty far with that. Same thing on the Anchor Swing. Heavy Ball, believe it or not, gets 25% crit chance and like 120 or 160% crit damage for free without relics. So you take that amount plus your relics. It's so easy to crit cap on a Heavy Ball Marauder. So you put on a good Fizz weapon and you're blasting. Kind of the same idea with Blade Barrier, just get a good weapon. And this character just has good damage in general. It's got a good single target skill. Next, we have B tier. These characters are going to need a solid foundation of gear, but it's nothing over the top, right? If you look at any of my build guides, I have a progression section where I show you the different items that you might want to look for and, you know, to go target farm for progression. It's those items that we're talking about. So for example, Demon Spawn, maybe you need Arcanum Asphyxiators to get the Aura. Maybe you need Enigma. Maybe you need a Rugal Sash so that you can try to hit your pen cap. You need a Delirium. You need the Aetherwalk Boots. You need a couple of charms like a Damien Cage or the Traveler Compass to get the extra skill on that. A couple of skiller rings like Kodos. Maybe you need a Divinity. It might have a couple extra skills on it. Like, you need a solid foundation of gear, but these aren't things that are impossible to get. They just require a bit of farming. Now, I will also mention that a lot of the Fizz characters in this section, like the Bullet Hell, Slice of Shadows, Shredder Traps, Quick Slash, Shockwave, a lot of these classes can get away with going the Shadow Weapon, right? You can get this from Reaper, Shadow Carvers, Shadow Furies. These are really strong items, but it's much harder to kill Reaper now than it's ever been. So normally I would put these up a bit higher because you really only need that one weapon and you can just coast all the way to Hell 5. But now, since it's a bit harder of a fight, we have to drop them down. I think you're going to need a bit more of a solid foundation to start with to be able to kill those bosses. Then you can get those items and progress that way, or you just progress a whole different way and skip the whole shadow item, right? So that's mainly what a lot of the Fizz skills are in here. Otherwise, it's just mainly casters that need a solid foundation of skills, penetration, and you know, good cast rate to feel good for the most part. Okay. Next, we have C tier. These characters are going to need more gear than the B tier, right? They need just that bit more. Like, you have to make sure that your relics are level 10. You have to make sure that your charms are filled out. The bases that you're making rune words on are probably going to need to have the extra skills on them to get more juice. You're going to need to have good FCR on caster classes. You're going to need to make sure you're crit capped, have good crit damage. If you're playing a Fizz build, you need to have a good weapon. You know, for example, if you're playing Cannonball, you're not going to be able to get away with using a Sky Song. You're going to need a thick weapon in order to make that character pop off. And lastly, we have our D tier. This is unrealistic amounts of gear. Things like Sand Guardian, you get like Gabriel's chest and shit, and you need a lot of gear to make this stuff pop off. Same for Fire, Exo, same for Odin's Fury, same for Whirlwind. Basically, once you get to the end of playing Shockwave, then you can start playing Whirlwind, right? Gunner Drone needs a lot of gear. Poison Nova, I've put so much damn gear on a Poison Nova every season, and I can never get this thing to do more than like 100 million multi. It's Poison Necro just isn't it. So the D tier are just really characters that are either dead or they need tons and tons of gear. And the last section, we have the I don't know section. I haven't played these characters in a long time, or I just haven't gone and scaled them up to really have a really good idea in the new season. Some of these characters I played back in season 7, but with the season 8 changes, I haven't felt that on the characters, so I don't want to put a tier on them myself. This is what I would recommend for the Hell 1 through Hell 5 progression. Season 8 brought in a ton of new items, as well as a bunch of reworked items that were added to the game not even just a few days ago before the open beta started. And with Season 8's closed beta not having access to an item spawner, most of these items haven't been tested. So the endgame meta for this season is really going to come down to people finding items, trying it on their builds, figuring stuff out. The most overpowered meta class this season will be you, the player that finds items, tries new interactions, and has fun with the game. And with that being said, that's going to wrap up today's tier list video. Be sure you guys hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with all future Hero Siege related news, content, and build guides. Watch me live at twitch.tv/Graxy_TV. We're going to be blasting the new season. I'm super excited to be playing Hero Siege. We're going to be doing so many fun things on Friday and this weekend, so would love to see you guys come and hang out. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.